Hey everybody, welcome back to another movie review. It's pretty early this time. We don't usually do videos around this time. I usually do them later at night when because I'm usually, out at work or doing some other things, but I had some free time and I promised in my last video that I would do a review for Mortal Kombat, the new film that came out, the latest adaptation of Mortal Kombat, and I'm going to do that review for you guys right now. So, I just woke up today and I just said, you know what, I'm just going to watch Mortal Kombat right now. So I just watched Mortal Kombat, and this film's been in development for a while. I think at one point, I'm not sure if James Wan was attached to direct, but I know he's producing this film, and it's based, of course, on the video games. And to lay out the groundwork, I have never played the video games. I'm not familiar with the video games. I know, obviously, the brutal violence that are in the video games, and I've seen the brutalities, the flawless victories, as they say in the film. Um, but I have also not seen the 90s films, so I've not seen the original film, nor have I seen Annihilation, which I've heard is not so great. um, but I was interested to see what this film was going to deliver and how it would stack up into other video game films. Because as of late, video game films have been, I would say, having a decent streak. We had Detective Pikachu, which I thought which was fair, and I thought Sonic the Hedgehog was also fair. So I thought we're in a decent streak so far for video games. So let's see where Mortal Kombat falls on that spectrum. And the first thing that I will say is that I think that the first 10 minutes of the film, I actually do think are fairly made. I think that it has a decent pace to it, and I think that the story itself, for what they were building within that 10 minutes, I thought was interesting. Um, it's when we transition, unfortunately, from that focus to another central focus is where the film becomes very, very lackluster and really becomes, in one word, scattered. Because the film jumps around a lot. There's a lot of things on its mind. There's a lot of elements that they want to present to the audience, with certain worlds, certain realms, certain characters, certain powers, and none of them really come to fruition, and you really feel taken out of the experience because you're kind of trying to figure out what everything is, and what is this realm? How does this power come about? Um, how do you determine you get these certain, all these questions, and they're not really answered from this film, and I was kind of disappointed on that regard. Um, and more or less more on the story is that I think it's also very subpar, very flawed, because it almost feels like it's finding excuses to get to the fight sequences versus finding some interesting elements to have beyond the fights. Because beyond the fights, I mean, the story itself is very boring. I mean, it's very, exactly what type of story you're getting into. It's the chosen one story. We've seen that story so many times, and this film plays that card a lot, and it doesn't feel fulfilling or satisfying. It just feels insanely familiar. Um, also, the acting itself I found to not be that great. I found mostly everybody beyond, I think Kano was okay. The actor who played Kano, I thought he did okay. He had the most development, I would say, because his acting was decent. But everybody else I found to not be that great. I found them to really, not hamming it up, but they just felt out of place. And I just felt that the chemistry was not there. I really felt the chemistry was lacking tremendously. Um, but more or less, though, like I said, I think in one word to describe Mortal Kombat, it's scattered. I think the elements happen just because, there's no reason or resonance to why characters or developments are made, or why certain actions are made, or certain ideas are not fully fleshed out. Like, in short, we really don't have a guiding hand into this world, and we unfortunately are left with something that has a lot of interesting ideas to play with, but just doesn't know how to properly translate it for mass audiences to understand. Someone like myself, to put it in a certain context, if you are a Mortal Kombat fan and you know a lot about Mortal Kombat, you know a lot about the world, I'm pretty sure you might like this movie. However, if you're someone like me who does not know a lot about Mortal Kombat and is wanting to understand this world a lot more, this isn't the film to get me into that world, because I don't know a lot about the world, even from watching this movie. And I wish the film was able to um, introduce me properly into the world of Mortal Kombat, because even after watching it right now, I still don't know a lot about this world. And I do hope that that with future adaptations for video games, because this is an issue of a lot of video games, a lot of video game movies, is that they think that the audience is aware enough of the source material to, not explain itself, and I find that to be ridiculous. Like, I hope with the new Uncharted film that comes out, Tom Holland, I want to know these characters. I want to understand this world. Or with the Last of Us series that's happening, I want to know these characters first. I want to understand this world first. I don't want to be, I don't want to think, oh, well, I have to play the video games to understand the film. That is completely ridiculous. The film should be able to explain itself. I shouldn't have to go to video games or some other form of source platform to understand another platform. To me, that's ridiculous. A story should be able to tell its story, and I should be able to understand that story. And Mortal Kombat, the new adaptation that came out, to use a phrase from Mortal Kombat, unfortunately, it's not the flawless victory that people are looking for. And I was really hoping for more than just fights, because honestly, the fights themselves are also not that great. There's a lot of quick cutting in the film, and I was not a fan of that. I was, at some points, I found it to be fine, but then at certain points, it became jarring, and I wasn't as involved in those fight scenes, nor was I involved in any of the fight scenes, to be honest with you. They just felt like they just kind of happened out of nowhere. Like Sub-Zero just comes out of nowhere, or Raiden just comes out of nowhere. Like, these characters just jump out of nowhere, and there's no rhyme or reason as to why they appear, or how they find certain things, or where they go. Like, it really feels very much fan-driven. And again, if you're a fan, you might love this, but for me, as someone who was wanting to understand this world, I think, unfortunately, the film failed in that regard. And like I said, I think it's just a really, really scattered story. And I was really hoping for more from it, rather than just the fight scenes. And they even, unfortunately, kind of failed on the fight scenes themselves in that regard, too. So to put it short, I think Mortal Kombat was very much a flawed piece. I did not find myself invested or interested. I was very much I was trying my best to get involved, but I was just finding myself jumping out of the film a lot, and I really wish that wasn't the case when watching the film. And it's not the flawless victory that people are looking for, unfortunately.